Hello, 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 and welcome to everyone who is joining us live today for the Voices with Impact 2022 World Fair. I am so glad that you are here. My name is Carrie McQueen. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder and executive director of Art with Impact. Our organization exists to share mental health stories through art and to create space for people to come together and experience art in community in order to explore our personal mental health journeys. Voices with Impact is at the very center of our organization's work and commitment to amplifying and celebrating a wide range of mental health stories. Through this program, we award grants to filmmakers who then produce short films that tell stories that have often been overlooked by mainstream media, because representation matters. And seeing art that explores the whole range of mental health experiences is critical in helping us all feel seen and heard. Today, we will be debuting 5 short films exploring stories around substance use disorder and recovery, created by a beautiful group of talented filmmakers. But I have to tell you, it has been quite a journey to get to today's premieres. Back in the fall of 2021, the 5 filmmaking teams who you'll meet today wrote proposals for their projects. Their proposals were then selected from among the hundreds of applications submitted to this program by our jury, made up of a prestigious group of filmmakers and mental health professionals. Each filmmaking team had only a few months to realize and finalize their scripts, put together their casts and crews, complete pre-production, production, principal photography, editing, color correction, scoring, everything. Then they submitted their films in April, and then they got to work on putting together this week's premiere. This week's events not only showcase their work, but include educational workshops throughout the week that will give us space to process the messages and ideas and emotions come up when we explore how substance use disorder actually looks in our day-to-day lives. I hope you will join us throughout the week for a wide range of workshops with titles like Unplanned Futures and It Starts Out Fun, So You Do It Again, and The Things We Never Say. In these intimate sessions, you will be interacting directly with each other and the filmmakers to explore some of the many, many themes that come up when you make powerful art about mental health. So hold on to your hats. But before we dive in, I have to take a moment to thank all the people who made today possible. Thank you to the Art with Impact team who worked on this project. Beth Killian, Alex Reynolds, Hillary Kelly, Andrew Kirshner, Nicholas Rosa, Kat Tanchanko, Rimbo Chipazi, and Mei Chan. Thank you to Nicole Medina, who designed the beautiful Phoenix artwork for this year's festival. Thank you to our 2 boards of directors, one in the US and one in Canada. Thank you to this year's jury who volunteered your time and wisdom to help review hundreds of applications for this year's program. Thank you to our sponsors and our community partners for investing in today's event, the American Psychiatric Association Foundation and BetterHelp.com. And a big and special thank you to California's Mental Health Commission, MHS-OAC. California's Mental Health Commission was established in 2004 with an ambitious yet singular purpose to fundamentally shift how California responds to mental health needs by driving transformational change. Their work supports the well-being of millions of people across California. The Commission was the first supporter of Voices with Impact. This program would not be possible without their partnership and their ongoing belief in the work of Art with Impact. Finally, last but for sure not least, I want to thank you for coming today to view these films and filmmakers. I invite you to stick around at the premieres for an interactive Q&A with the filmmakers themselves, where you can type your questions or comments into whatever platform you're joining us from today. One last note, mental health is personal. You are the expert on your own mental health experience. Also, mental health is complex, right? Today's films will explore substance use disorder, but they'll also touch on a lot of other important mental health topics. So to that end, we will be providing a written content heads up graphic prior to each film. And we've done our best to identify themes that may be activating, but we also acknowledge that big feelings can come up for any of us unexpectedly, especially with regard to the subject matter of these films. So I encourage you to do whatever will best support your wellness, especially if you have personal experience with the content of these films. You've shown up today. Thank you. And how you engage is up to you, whether that's taking a break, getting water, taking deep intentional breaths, or something else. If you find yourself in need of support, please type the URL that will be in the corner of your screen throughout today's event to get a list of mental health resources available to you now. Without further ado, I'm excited to pass the floor to Dr. Monica Taylor Desir, a board member at the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, who will be introducing our first filmmaker. I'll see you on the other side of the Q&A, and in the meantime, I invite you to sit back and enjoy Voices with Impact 2022.
Hi, my name is Dr. Monica Taylor Desir. I am a community psychiatrist in Minnesota. I would like to thank the American Psychiatric Association Foundation for providing me this opportunity to present Athena Russell and her film, Once Upon a Time, in this year's Voices with Impact Film Festival. Athena Russell was born and raised in Victoria, British Columbia. Athena has over 45 professional film and TV credentials, both in front of and behind the camera. She has quickly become Vancouver's most sought-after indie filmmaker. Athena's films have screened and won numerous awards at film festivals around the world, including Just for Laughs, Fantasia Film Festival, Palm Springs International Film Festival, New York Comedy Festival, and Calgary International Film Festival, just to name a few. Most recently, her film, Freya, screened and won Audience Choice for Best Short Narrative at the Newport Beach Film Festival. While watching Athena Russell's Once Upon a Time, I am reminded of my work in tribal communities. This film highlights the impact of substance use on the parent-child relationship. This also reminds me of my own recognition of children as wise and resilient members of our own community who can often reframe their life circumstances and provide us hope and expectation of recovery. Once again, it's my pleasure to introduce Athena Russell.
Hey, my name is Athena Russell, and I'm a filmmaker residing in Vancouver, BC, and I am just so thrilled and so excited to be here with all of you today as we share our film, Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time is a film that tackles a bit of my own personal experiences of living with a parent who suffered from alcoholism as a young child. It was a film that was inspired by just the realities of feeling powerless to the struggles that my mom faced, but was also heavily inspired by the power and the safe place that art provided for me as a child to express myself, which now years later I've experienced firsthand as an educator. Told through the lens of a fairy tale that our lead shares with her class, our hope is that Once Upon a Time will allow an audience to not just see the direct effects of addiction in a household from the perspective of a young child, but also hear it and feel it as well. Mine and Hannah's story affects an estimated 5.9 million Canadians a year. Current research findings suggest that these children are at risk for a range of cognitive, behavioral, or emotional issues, which, without a space or a place to express themselves, well, the damage and repercussions could last a lifetime. This film is a love letter to my resilient mother who is now sober, heck yeah, and to every other parent and child that is dealing with this reality. So from the bottom of our entire team's hearts, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Art with Impact for this just truly amazing and incredible opportunity and experience. And well, we hope you enjoy the film.
Okay, that's enough. Settle down, okay? Whenever you're ready, Hannah.
Once upon a time, there was a little fairy. She lived with a princess in a magical forest. The fairy and the princess would color, eat chicken nuggets, jump in puddles, watch silly movies, and go on walks. But one day, the princess drank a powerful potion, and she got cursed. Some days the curse made the princess really sleepy, and she couldn't wake up. And other days it made the princess really mad at the fairy.
I told you to pick up these toys, Hannah!
We're still playing with them though.
How many times do I have to tell you?
The baddest days were the ones when the curse made the princess cry. This made the fairy feel really sad. But sometimes the potion would go away. And the princess would be happy again. She would laugh and play with the fairy and smile. But the curse was very bad, and it always came back.
Oh, did you get dessert at least? No, I mean, I got good time.
Mommy?
Oh, baby, no.
The fairy wanted to save the princess from the potion and leave the forest forever. So she tried really hard to fly them away. But her wings weren't big enough yet. So the little fairy decided to stay in the forest and take care of her mom until she got a lot bigger and a lot stronger. And then maybe one day she would be strong and big enough to kick the potion's butt and fly them away, and they would live happily ever after. The end.
Hey, I'm Norman Lake. This is my good friend Eric Chapman. We're about to play a song for you. You went for the fist bump, didn't you? All good. We're about to play a song for you called Meant to Be. And it's a song I wrote about being in a difficult period and just wanting more for myself, but feeling unable to achieve it. And ultimately, I had to realize that that was just a false narrative. And yeah, I wrote this song about it. I just a haunting? Gaunt and hollow reflection wanting, cast blank, retreat into nothing. This is not who I'm meant to be. This is not who I'm meant to be. This is not who I'm meant to be. Oh God, this is not who I'm meant to be. Stoned in the evening, disposition slowly creeping away from me. Tell me I'm healing. Rising tides drag me to the ceiling. Breathing to push out the feeling that I don't want me. So nobody else can. It's the lie within me. It's the This is not who I'm meant to be. This is not who I'm meant to be. This is not who I'm meant to be. Oh God, this is not who I'm meant to be. Oh God, this is not who I'm meant to be. Oh God, this is not who I'm meant to be. Oh God, this is not who I'm meant to be. Oh God, this is not who I'm meant to be. Thanks for listening. You can check out my stuff online and get in touch with me on social media. Norman Lake Music.
Hey world, my name is Sean Lewis Green. I am a facilitator with Art with Impact, so I have the pleasure of facilitating movies for mental health as well as Black Mental Health Matters. I'm also a Howard University alum, which is the same for Asha, who is the incredible director of the film Bloom. So in just a second, you're gonna be able to hear from Asha, see the film, but honestly, as someone that saw it, it was vulnerable, it was open, and it also centers the experience of a Black man in this film, which really resonated with me. It's an important message. It really speaks to not suffering in silence, and I hope that you all really enjoy it. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring Asha to the stage. Asha, congratulations, and on behalf of your Howard University family, your fellow Bison, your community, thank you so much for providing this perspective for us, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck. So without further ado, here's Asha.
Hi, I'm Asha, the director of Bloom. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for you all to see this film. First, I would like to give a huge shout out and thank you to my team for helping make this possible. You guys really helped to elevate my vision, and you worked with me so well and made all of this possible, and just kind of exceeding my expectations and making this into something that I don't think I could have ever imagined. I would also like to give a huge thank you to Art with Impact. Thank you for making this possible, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of something so important and so special. And thank you for all of the continued support and all of the support throughout this entire process as well. So thank you. I would also like to give an extra special thank you to Dylan for allowing me to share his story and for being so courageous and so amazing in sharing all of this with anyone, with the world. That was so brave of you, and I wish you just the best of luck out there. I hope that this film inspires you in some way. I hope that it inspires you to be open and to be honest and to be trusting, not only with others, but with yourself. And I hope that it inspires you to have a conversation with those that you love and those that you care about. I hope that it inspires you to share your story. You never know who could be impacted by what you're saying. You never know who might be ready to support you. So I hope that this just allows you to be open. And I hope that if you are a person who is that support system and you are that friend, you are that family member that people can go to, that this teaches you to listen and to understand above anything. But thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you all enjoy this film.
Less than a month after I turned 21, I got an OVI, which is operating a vehicle while intoxicated. And you never think it's gonna be you. So that particular night, I actually blacked out behind the wheel. So the events that led up to me being arrested, and don't remember them. I have a memory of drinking like way too young, like 8th grade summer going into freshman year. Like I had a friend who lived with his grandparents and, you know, basements full of booze, and we would go over there and I don't even know if at that time I even realized what was happening, or if I even it starts off fun. And that's where the issue kind of starts at, because it's so fun that you do it again, and then you do it again, and you do it again. It takes so long before you even realize, damn, I have a problem. And you can continue to kind of be who you were, or you can try to backpedal and come back and say, hey, let's fix this problem. But either way you choose, it's gonna be hard. It's rarely ever just, oh, I'm an addict. There's some anxiety there, there's some depression there. And don't get me wrong, life is good. The world is a good place for the most part, but there's a lot of evil in it. Especially being a young black man, I feel like a lot of it is systemically set up that way. How many liquor stores are in the suburbs? When you're in the hood, there's one every couple blocks, you know what I mean? Same way there's a McDonald's. It's easy to lose touch with yourself when you're navigating multiple issues, and then on top of that, you're still trying to live life, but then you kind of got this anchor. I got arrested in Shaker Heights, and my license was suspended for a year. I had to go to a drug intervention program for 72 hours. I had to go to 20 AA or NA meetings. It's truly a great thing, because it really provides, kind of that support system. Kind of goes back to the stigma part of it. For as many people that do struggle with, substance abuse and addiction and stuff like that, there's also a whole another billion people who don't. So those people don't actually understand what you're going through a lot of the time. So a lot of times it could just come off as, oh, you're selfish, or you're lazy, or you don't have willpower, or you don't this, you don't that. And it's so much deeper than that. And I feel like that's part of the reason why a lot of people don't bother to say anything. It's I'll struggle in silence. This world needs more love, more communication, and more understanding. I have a bunch of empathetic, understanding people in my life that I can call, but you don't always want to burden people with the things you have going on. I feel like a lot of me feeling like a burden comes down to me and how I know I can be doing better. I think the thing that kind of inspires me to, in general, and to be sober, is knowing that on the other side of that is a better version of myself. This ascension to become the best person or the best version of yourself that you can be is not always linear. There are ups and downs. You know, me and my lowest, if he was, you know, over there and looking at me now, you know, he'd definitely be proud, because I mean, this is just a start, but it's a good start. Being here and being open and being vulnerable and being just honest about, you know, what I go through on a day-to-day, that's progress. That's a lot of progress from where I once was.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, where we live, learn, work, worship, and play. We believe that this vision can be realized when we commit to our Notice, Talk, and Act framework. Let's start with Notice. Knowing what to look for as changes in ourselves and others may signal concern for our mental health and well-being. Not waiting, but moving upstream to notice changes earlier. Much earlier. When it comes to talk, hats off to those speaking up about mental health. Let's build on that progress. That's what breaks down stigma. That brings us to ACT, a place to join forces around a common purpose of ensuring people get the help they need when they need it. Accessing mental health care should be as easy as getting a cast for a broken bone. Join the APA Foundation's efforts to demystify and destigmatize mental health, offering help and hope to millions in need. For more information on the Notice, Talk, Act program, visit www.apafdn.org.
Hi everyone, my name is Beth Killian and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the lead educator at Art with Impact. It is my absolute honor to be introducing our next two filmmakers, 1990s Chris and Lucy Rachel, who together created the film Save the Queen, which we will be premiering in just a few moments. I was first introduced to the work of Lucy and Chris through their film Touch Me, Don't Touch Me, which was the Olive Film winner in October 2018. This film impacted me on such a deeply personal level and inspired me to continue working in spaces where art could be used as a way to talk about things that aren't often given the space to explore. Lucy and Chris have continued to create awe-inspiring works of art that challenge us to think deeply about cultural norms, our relationship to masculinity and vulnerability, and the ways we can find connection to each other. Lucy Rachel is an artist and filmmaker who focuses on intimate subject matter, moving between artist, film, and documentary genres. Since graduating from DJCAD in 2015 as one of the RSA New Contemporaries, they have directed award-winning short films with the Scottish Documentary Institute, Glasgow Film, Channel 4 Random Acts, and here at Art with Impact. Their work has screened internationally at over 70 festivals. 1990s Chris is a queer working-class poet, activist, performer, and filmmaker whose works have touched the hearts of folks not only across the UK, but throughout the entire world. He has been commissioned by BBC Arts for a radio production on bisexuality. He's also working on several projects for Channel 4's Random Acts and has written for the Courtyard Theatre, and currently he's the writer at Neoteric Dance Company. On top of all of that, he is a dear friend and colleague of mine and created our Wellness in Words program at Art with Impact, which creates space for folks to connect vulnerably through creative expression and writing. With that, it is my true pleasure to welcome Lucy and Chris, who are going to talk a bit more about their film, Save the Queen.
Hi, I'm Lucy Rachel. I'm an artist filmmaker based in Brighton, and I co-directed and co-produced our film, Save the Queen. As a content heads up, we're going to talk about substance use, alcohol, and drinking culture within our introduction. First, we would like to say a huge thank you to Art with Impact for supporting our work and for creating this space to share it within. The Voices with Impact program is amazing and we're so grateful to be part of it. This is a film that we both feel very personally connected to, but in quite different ways. But it really means a lot for us to be able to share this story with you. Our film, Save the Queen, is a spoken word artist film exploring some of the grey areas of British drinking culture. It's a story that encompasses class, masculinity, anxiety and isolation, and how those things can intersect with substance use disorder. The grey area for us is that space between I'm okay, I'm having fun, let's do this again, and maybe actually I'm not okay. It's a space that isn't often recognised or talked about within British drinking culture, but the image of using alcohol to block out our thoughts, our feelings, our issues is familiar and is regularly shown on screen. But what that might look like in real life can take so many different forms, and it changes between different cultures. As filmmakers from rural working class backgrounds, we're interested what shape this grey area can take in that environment. So this is a film about a young man down the pub with one of his mates who is in that grey area. Thank you.
Hi, I'm 99's Chris. I'm a poet, a writer and a filmmaker from Hereford, England. I wrote and co-directed Save the Queen. I had a lot of fun writing this short. The story is very personal to me. In many ways, works of fiction I think allow you to be a little more honest with yourself, and for me this work was about acknowledging a situation that feels very familiar. One thing that I think we don't talk about enough is being in between okay and not okay at all, and I think that's a space in which we could have a lot more conversation and where a lot more work could be done. Writing Save the Queen was about offering an option to talk about the grey area of drinking culture and to open up a conversation around giving ourselves permission to say that we need some help. I don't only see Save the Queen as a story about substance misuse, I see it as a story about masculinity and the difficulty that we have connecting as men. The tough part of this for me is not really the drinking itself, but that men need a reason to spend time together. They can only open up to each other after a few drinks. The issue is not always the escape itself, but what it is that we're escaping from. I'd really like to thank Art with Impact. The freedom offered by the Voices with Impact program is a rarity, and I'm so grateful for the space to make this work and their commitment to sharing stories like this. Just before you watch the film, I'd like to give a contents heads up. The film includes depiction and descriptions of alcohol use, drinking culture and isolation. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the film. Cheers.
As soon as you sit down with your first drink, you throw a 20p piece into my double rum and lemonade. You tell me, better save the Queen, mate. Drink up. It's gross, yeah. But we both know what I'm gonna do. I clutch the glass. Dishwasher warm, ice bucket cold, throw my patriot arm towards the sky. Necked it. Top lad. The idea is that the Queen is drowning, and you can save her by downing your drink in one. As I wipe my stiff lip dry, I tell you, I bloody hate you. Wind up, merchant. It's good to see you, mate. It's been too long. A couple of drinks with one of the lads is just what I needed. You say I never text you back. I tell you it's because you send me boring texts like, how are you and how is work? You tell me that's life. You got a new missus. She says you go down the pub too much. Mine used to say that. We cheers to the ridiculousness of a slippery slope. You spill a bit on your jeans. Looks like you've pissed yourself. I want to tell you that I hear a noise, and that I reckon you must hear it too. That, yeah, it is life, and it's work, and it's family, and it's everything, and it's relentless. And that I brought you here to drown it out, and that I want to know if you came here to drown it out too. Whether it's really the Queen that needs saving. Just wonder what you'd think if you knew. You were the 4th person I texted today. Copy and pasted the message. Fancy a few down the old horse? Sent it to all the people I thought might say yes. You were just the first one that did. Running away, you look suspiciously like sitting down somewhere that everyone knows your name. I claw the coin from between the mountain ice, propel the clean metal from my slippery fingers. You smile as she slides her way back down to the bottom. Better save the Queen, mate. Drink up.
Hi, my name is Melissa Hummelt, and I'm a licensed therapist and a clinical operations manager at BetterHelp, which is an online platform that connects clients looking for therapy with licensed therapists like myself. Part of our mission at BetterHelp is to make professional therapy accessible, affordable, and convenient. Unfortunately, there is still widespread stigma surrounding therapy and receiving professional help and support. This is especially true for people who struggle with a substance use disorder. Our society has inaccurately depicted substance use disorder as a moral failure or failure of will rather than a health problem. And this view has impacted our laws, our services, research, and funding. The end result is that folks struggling with substance use are not usually afforded the same kind of care one would receive with a different chronic disease, illness, or challenge. Stigma can keep people from being diagnosed in the first place, it can keep people from getting the appropriate treatment they need, and it can hinder people from staying in recovery. More than 20 million people in the US have a substance use disorder, and only 1 in 10 people who need treatment eventually seek it out. Behind the statistics are real-life people, and it's likely you personally know someone who is struggling with this. There are family members, our colleagues, our friends, and our neighbors. Art, and film in particular, are powerful mediums to share the stories of real-life people to help us all better understand the experience of others. And with better understanding, more curiosity, and most importantly, more empathy, we can all do our part to help lessen the stigma surrounding substance use disorder, as well as other mental health challenges. You're about to hear some real-life stories. When I heard the stories of Charm and Victoria, who you will also meet in the following film, it reminded me of the hurdles that those in recovery face, the trauma they've likely experienced and endured, and the obstacles they've overcome. Their stories are beautiful and inspiring ones of recovery, and these are the real and personal stories I wish the public knew and better understood when they think about substance use disorder. With that, I'm excited to introduce the next film, Coming Home to Myself by Fayani Hung, Nikki Kennedy, and Ethan Volberg, where we'll hear and learn from women who share their journey and personal path to recovery. I'd like to say thank you to Charm for bravely sharing her story of hope, perseverance, and resilience. I know this film will help you all feel the same optimism I felt while hearing Charm's story. Everyone has a life story, and as a therapist, it's been an honor to hear many of these stories
and I've seen firsthand how important sharing and learning from one another can be to foster emotional healing. Therapy can help and recovery is possible. Enjoy the film.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikki Kennedy. I'm the creator and writer of Coming Home to Myself. Recovery is possible. Substance use disorder is broad, individual, and it happens numerous ways for numerous people. Through our journey, we found out that the images of addiction are very clear. However, the images of recovery are less clear and not as often talked about. I wanted to participate in the destigmatization of substance use disorder, and it turned out we didn't have to look far to discover numerous stories which indeed tell us recovery is possible. We collaborated with a woman named Charm. Together we explored her recovery journey and worked together to represent essential pieces of that journey in our film. On behalf of our team, I want to thank Charm, Victoria, and Mia. Thank you for all your effort, sharing your stories, knowledge, and wisdom, and all the great many interactions which we shared. We will carry the stories and memories with us forever. Next, of course, our crew. First off, I want to thank Faye. Thank you for taking me on as a newbie to the film world and believing in our project. You put so many hours into this, and I'm eternally grateful for your expertise and professionalism. Thank you, Mama Faye. Ethan, or Ethy, we brought you on as the DP, and you ended up taking on so many roles for this project, and words cannot describe how absolutely astounded I am by your dedication to getting every detail just right, all the hours you put in to educate yourself, to edit, to make music. And thank you for all the creative and collaborative chats and allowing me to take the lead. It was a pleasure working with you. And to the rest of the team, thank you for your talents and your time. You are all so ready to explore this world with us, the world of recovery and possibility. And together, we made this film possible. Thank you.
My leaves are burning, my stem is dry. I'm sorry to say, but I must die. For you, my flower, is not the time to leave your petals all behind. I gave you a river to wash away the pain, my life, my soul, my entire shame.
God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
My name is Charm. I've been in recovery for 18 months. My recovery date is September 17th, 2020. I have trauma in the past. I was raised in a very abusive family. I started my addiction when I was 12, and it carried on in my teenage years. It led me to dark places I never wanted to see again. I was lonely and broken. I ended up sleeping in my car. That was my rock bottom. I was so hopeful when I reached out to recovery. I was so hopeful.
I need help. I've been in my car for a few days.
Within a few days, I was in the recovery center. Recovery, it's not only about stopping your addiction, it's about discovering yourself. It's about knowing yourself as a human being.
On the mat, step back to plank. Lowering down, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, up dog or baby cobra.
My name is Victoria. I teach yoga. When I was 13 years old, I chose to leave my loving family to live on the streets of Vancouver. I have gotten clean and then relapsed a bunch of times, and I chose recovery. I got my yoga teacher certificate, so I teach yoga. I teach yoga at recovery houses. I'm involved in Narcotics Anonymous. I was living in my car as well, the same thing. I've died a few times, and now I choose life and recovery. Pressing your thumbs into the center of your chest. Wiggle your
I felt like I found my new family. By doing the steps, it really showed me humility in my life and how we're no less than or greater than anyone else. It taught me about love, finding love in myself, love in others, and respect. It taught me how to surrender to my addiction, and most importantly, it taught me how to accept it. Today, I work at a recovery center. I get to help other women on their journey to recovery. It's worth doing it all because you are worth it. Recovery is worth it, and your life is worth it. My name is Charm, and recovery is possible.
Peace everyone, my name is Lumi from the Peace Poets. I'm an artist, educator, and filmmaker here in New York City. I wrote this piece dedicated to a dear family member who was forgetting what home was. This is a piece to call them back. I'm happy to present this work as part of the Voices with Impact 2022 premiere. I know you might be thinking, is this all it really is? Breath and blood mixed with emotion and a notion of an id. Past and present represented in regrets of what you did and didn't do. What's killing you is the extent of what you'd give. To have a second chance to crack a light for what remains of a broken-hearted prison and the prisms in your name. Perfect freedom, fractured fractals, and a framed-up window pane. Painful patterns, painted pastures, and the pangs up in your brain. Hungry, starving, thirsting, fiending for that feast you keep inside. I won't bore you or assure you, because the more that I would try to convince you that you're perfect, the more that you'd subside into some whack ideas of darkness, archetypal field of lies. So I'll simply say, what's good? And maybe listen for a try to who you are and where you're at, knowing one day we will die, and that this moment is a treasure which we're both discovering, and that God is in the space between the love we're covered in. So for all who may be listening, or those just hovering, for saint and sinner, addict, or for those recovering, I'd like to say I see you. that I'm willing if I don't, that I love you, that I'm trying, even when my spirit won't, that I've struggled loving me for all my flaws and all my failures. I've obsessed, stayed depressed, engaged in deadliest behaviors. But the lesson that I've learned, with each wound I've turned to mend. Family, we might have lost the battle, but this simply ain't the end.
Hello, my name is Itai Danovich. I'm the professor and chair of psychiatry at Cedars-Sinai, and I specialize in taking care of people who suffer from addiction. I also serve on the California Mental Health Services Commission. We are going through a time where there's a lot of suffering, and a lot of people cope with suffering by using substances, and many people lose control of their use of substances. The film you're about to see is really powerful. It addresses addiction in a unique and powerful way. And I think that's so important because addiction is something that we have words for, we have diagnostic definitions for, we understand and can talk about the science of addiction. But at the human level, it's often beyond words. Words are inadequate to talk about suffering. One of the things that characterizes addiction is that there's a disconnection as somebody develops an intense relationship with a drug and loses often their connections with other people. And it's that disconnection that makes it hard for people to recover. And it's connection that recovery is about. One of the things that I would wish is that people viewing this would see the possibility that exists for them to take bold and courageous steps, connecting with other people, revealing what it is that they're struggling with, so that they too can have that be normalized and be supported on a journey towards recovery. So I hope that as people view this film, they're inspired to recognize that recovery is possible. Yeah, it takes courage, it takes boldness, it takes a willingness to connect with other people. But what's really important is to know that there's hope and to know that recovery is possible. On behalf of the California Mental Health Services Commission, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Lane Michael Stanley, who wrote and directed the film Promise, which I hope you will enjoy.
Hi, my name is Lane Michael Stanley. I use he and they pronouns, and I am the filmmaker of Promise, and I am so excited to be introducing this film to you, our very first audience. So our choreographer and co-creator, Sarah Jack, first started working on choreography phrases around the themes of prescription opioid addiction in 2018 through some dance labs that she was a part of. And she and I teamed up in 2019 to create a half-hour dance theater piece that explored multiple different subplots all around the theme of characters who were struggling with specifically prescription opioid addiction, looking at overprescription of opiates, but also lack of resources around how to manage a prescription, and also looking at just some of the ways that this happens for people, that they can spiral into this kind of experience. And it's a deeply personal story for both of us. I went through inpatient rehab and a recovery house program after my fiance suddenly died of a heart attack in 2016, and I just celebrated 6 years sober this April. And fighting stigma around addiction and increasing awareness and understanding and compassion of people who struggle with addiction is a huge part of what my work has looked like since. It is, our team strongly believes that when people see addiction less as a moral failing and more as a consequence of situations, of brain chemistry, of upbringing, of all of these factors, that opens doors to resources and care that often get shut in our faces by people who think that we should just say no, right? And so dance is such an incredibly impactful medium to be stigma breaking in, because when you watch dance, you can't help but have a physiological response to what the dancer's body is doing. And so that means we have a very powerful tool. And when we saw this opportunity from Art with Impact, it was an opportunity for us to continue the piece that we had started back in 2019, which we had always intended to do, to bring in my producing partner, Lowell Blank, so that we could make it a production of Secretly Famous Productions. We are releasing our first feature later this year, which is about my experiences living in the recovery house, inspired by my experiences. It's a fiction film. And this was just a fantastic opportunity for us to explore how dance feels different and yet the same in cinema, and to find the balance of narrative storytelling so that hopefully you have enough breadcrumbs to know what's going on, that there is a story being told, and that, you know, people come to find themselves. That rock bottom can look like all different kinds of things for people. Some people don't have as clear of a rock bottom as others. That hope and change are possible, and helping spread messaging about just one of the many ways that people find themselves in situations that they don't know how to get out of on their own. And so we are so excited to be sharing this film with you, to hear, you know, what's resonating for you, what's not resonating for you, how this relates to things that you've seen or experienced in the world. So grateful to the creative team, the cast and crew, to Art with Impact, to our sponsors, to the staff of this phenomenal organization. We're just, so grateful to have had such a phenomenally brilliant team through every step of this process, and the last ingredient of that, and the most important ingredient of that is our audiences. And so very grateful to be here and to be engaging with all of you, and can't wait to connect with you about this film. Thank you so much, and please enjoy Promise.
I'll love you till the day I die.
Promise.
Promise.
first got here and met all of you, and I couldn't believe that you were serious about not using drugs again. The only reason I was even here was because I needed to get the paper signed so our probation officer wouldn't send me back to jail. But it doesn't matter why you come here, why you show up, whether it's to get a paper signed or because you don't know what else to do. Just showing up is proof of faith in the promise of this program. It's at least enough faith to get you out of the house and get your butt in a chair, get a cup of coffee and shut up and listen to somebody else for a while. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing. Hey, I'm Lindsay, and I don't want to get high today.
Hi, Lindsay.
And my week has been good.
Hello, welcome back. What a journey, huh? So much beautiful. Thank you, filmmakers. At this point, I would love to invite the filmmakers to join me on this screen. So turn on your cameras and your microphones, and we'll do a Q&A. And whichever platform you're joining in, I know we're streaming in YouTube and Twitch and places and Facebook. I don't even know where all. Wherever you are, thanks to the internet, we can see your comments and chats. So what are your questions? What do you want to know from these filmmakers? What do you want to see or hear more about? All of these are things that we can talk about now. We've got the time. We got the people. We got the real people who made these actual films right here with us right now. So type your questions into the chat, and I really look forward to having this conversation. So I'm going to start with a question of my own, and I'd love to hear from each of you, and I'll just sort of call so you know who I'm talking to. But I'd love to hear a little bit about who you made this film for. Who, when you were imagining your audience, of course we always make art for ourselves. So there's that, and maybe that was part of it. But also maybe there was somebody theoretical in your mind that you were thinking about who needed to see this work. Athena, I'd love to start with you if you don't mind.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. I made this film for my mom. This film is loosely based on my experience of living with my mom as a teenager tween who suffered from alcohol abuse and misuse. And so, she's now sober and went through rehab, and the film was very much inspired by a letter I was asked to write her after she got out of rehab, kind of explaining what it felt like as a child and what the experience was like. And it was really interesting because I was never really able to send it to her. It was weird. It was like with the skills to communicate and having all that time gone by, I just didn't know how to send it to her. And, we've made amends. My mom is amazing. And so this was kind of little bits and pieces of that letter I wasn't really able to send. And so I thought I could kind of show her what my experience was like. So, yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And Asha, your film also is about a family member as well. Tell us a little bit about who you made this film for.
Well, I think I made it for Dylan. I feel like making this film ended up becoming healing for him and a way for him to kind of express where he is in his journey and to kind of work through what he's going through.
Thank you. Lane, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's I don't have a specific person I can point to. Obviously, it's very personal for me. I think often the question that I'm thinking about is this how is this going to sit with people who have had this or similar lived experience versus how is it going to sit for those who don't. I think in this particular film, most of the time, I think it was targeted more towards folks who have not gone through this, right? When we're talking about compassion building, when we're talking about conveying an experience for stigma breaking, I think not that we don't need to break those internalized stigmas within ourselves so much of the time, but I think we are often communicating to an audience that maybe hasn't gone through these things. But I think that including the glimpse of recovery at the end also comes from being in close community and conversation with, you know, my sponsee sisters and other people. And, you know, for me personally, it's 12-step programs about, you know, the kind of dangers and harm that we do ourselves in focusing so much on trauma and addiction narratives with no spark of hope at the end. You know, so I don't think it's for people who haven't experienced it at the expense of people who have is my intention. But yeah, for me and for the co-creator Sarah, it's a very, you know, very personal for you know, inside of us as well.
Thanks so much. Chris, tell us about who were you thinking about when you were making this film? Who do you hope sees it? Oh no, you're muted, my friend. No? All right, you fiddle around with that. We'll come right back to you. So Faye and Nicole, let's bring the two of you on. So you co-created Coming Home to Myself. I'd love to hear, starting with Faye, what was your motivation behind making this film?
So the motivation behind the film, actually Nikki brought me on to this amazing project, and we were wanting to discover the people on mainstream that we see a lot of films that is talking about substance use, but never talk about how to recover when you accidentally or get into the situation like this. And I think Charm is really an inspiration and really got into our motivation that we want to make a film for her to let people know recovery is possible. And passing on to Nikki.
Yeah, so you can hear me, right? Okay, perfect. So my goal behind this was to create inspiration and representation for people going through substance use disorder so that it kind of shows, you know, recovery is possible. That was ultimately what we wanted with the film. And also we want to create destigmatization for those that may not understand what it's like, or what, you know, for our narrative specifically, what Charm went through that led her through the journey that she went through. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Chris, let's try you again. No. We see you moving your mouth. Nope. We'll come back. Maybe if you, maybe the classic reboot, that sometimes is the thing. Great. So we have a question from the audience from Kosu. Asha, what did you learn from making your film, Bloom?
I think I learned that a lot of times when people are going through things, sometimes it's better to just listen instead of offering advice, because a lot of times they know what they need to do. They know what processes they need to go to, and I guess how to solve their issue, but they kind of just want to vent, and they just want someone to listen to what they have to say. So.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to put this next audience question to you, Lane, as somebody who's thought a lot about recovery and sort of the systems around addiction. We have a question that says, do you think it would be better if the United States had total control over the sale of liquor, as the provinces do in Canada?
First of all, I don't know anything about the sale of liquor in Canada, and now I'm fascinated by what you just said, because I don't understand what that means. The initial thing that makes me think about was some of the conversations that were happening in my recovery circles when COVID first hit, because liquor stores were deemed an essential business in the States. And so while you had tons of things closing, you had grocery stores and liquor stores, were staying open. And some people in recovery thought that was garbage, right? Like thought that was so ridiculous, and also there was a lot of conversation, that I was seeing like on social media and things where people were just like, oh, I'm like gonna get drunk tonight, because like everything got canceled, and I was seeing a lot of like people using alcohol to cope with that initial isolation of COVID. And so then for the stores to stay open in the midst of that. But a lot of folks in my recovery circles also really were pushing back against that, against the notion that a liquor store isn't an essential business, mostly because you would have people going into withdrawal, and you also just have people who are going to find it no matter what. So I think that the kind of in my experience, a lot of the 12-step spaces that I've been in can be very individualistic and very personal responsibility focused, almost to a fault, arguably. And what I mean by that is that there is often a reticence to engage with cultural factors that lead to, disproportionately predispose someone to substance abuse, because it's not very meaningful to be like, I'm an alcoholic because I was raised by alcoholics, which, as true as that might be and is for many of us, it doesn't help me get clean to say that necessarily. And so for me, it's like, well, I don't know that a tighter control over the sale of alcohol is going to reduce alcoholics. Like, I can plan around the operating hours of a business. I wouldn't put access as one of the leading causes of alcoholism, at least for me personally. But I'm not a policy expert, and that's certainly not to say that the needle could be moved somewhat on something by a shift in that. I don't know where I would rank, liquor store hours or advertising on the list of contributing factors. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's so complex, right? Thank you so much. Athena, my next question is for you. So you've mentioned that this is so closely based on your own emotional experiences, and even like a letter that you had written to your mom. I'm wondering how you took care of yourself in making such a deeply personal film.
Yeah, from the get-go, I thought it was really important to involve my mom in the process, just to protect her and protect our relationship. And so when I wrote the script, the initial first draft, I sent it to her. She had a few things that she didn't want in the film. I think they were a little trigger heavy, so I took those out, and then just heavily involving her in the process. It actually involved in some really beautiful growth for us. There was a lot of really wonderful, meaningful conversations that came out of it. Just a lot of really wonderful things came from it. And I was telling my producers that I was a little nervous going to set, seeing little me going through some things that were true or, quite similar to what had happened. But it was so interesting because I kind of just compartmentalized it. It was just like doing the job, directing, and I remember wrapping the first day and I was like, I felt nothing. Like I had mentally prepared for like breakdowns, and I had all my favorite treats, and I had like my therapist on speed dial, and I was like, why am I feeling nothing? And it was so, I think it was just going through the motions and getting the job done. And we wrapped on the third day, and I got home and I sat on my couch, and it was just like this emotional vomit, if you would, of just like, I just cried for like 13 hours. And it was just like this beautiful release of, I think, words I never said or experiences I never framed, and just like going through the motions and finally kind of closing that chapter and feeling comfortable to talk about it and share. So it was a process, and it was one that I made like a plan. I was like, this is how I'm going to approach this. This is how I'm going to keep myself safe. And it was completely the opposite. Mental health is one of those things that you can't really plan or, kind of orchestrate. So it was a really interesting process. But it was very fun. Yeah, not what I expected. So
beautiful. Thank you. Chris, can we hear you yet?
It looks like.
Yeah! So yeah, I'd love to go back to the first question that I asked you that we haven't heard your response yet on. Who do you hope sees Save the Queen?
Yeah, so thanks for having me here. And my co-director, Lucy, sends her regards. She's got a dodgy connection, so can't be here. But yeah, so who is it for, and who do we hope to see it? Well, I think I always try and make work that is for working class people who art is not always aimed at. And I feel like that's always the community I have in mind when I'm making anything. In particular, I think that this one is sort of for, it's for like the guys in my hometown who kind of don't have any focus or, any kind of like, like, it's really personal to me. I felt like that before. And yeah, I think I want young men to see it, because so many, I think so many young men that I know are kind of are very used to kind of burying things in that way. And they've learned it from, the men before them. And I always think when I make work that's quite focused about on men and masculinities, I'm often really doing it for the people that are affected by those men's actions, because I kind of always wanted to, I'm one of those people that have had those men around me that are quite hard to understand, and there's a lot going on there and you're like, what is this all about? So I think that for me, it's for men that can connect and open up about their feelings, but also the people that are around those men and find that quite difficult.
Thank you. I love that. So this question is for Nicole. What did you learn about experiences around substance use disorder that you didn't know going into this project, through the process of working with CHARM and all of the process of making a documentary film can be so immersive, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of things, but I'd love to hear, a couple of things that you learned about substance use disorder that you didn't perhaps know going in.
Mm-hmm. What did I learn? I have had a lot of friends and family go through something like this. So I think it was more about like the individual experience of CHARM and, her history and how that impacted her ability to cope and the ways that she coped through hard and difficult times. I think I learned a lot about like I said, I always believed that we're all equal, but it's another thing to be able to feel that when we step on set for the film, that we were all equal, we all were there to serve a purpose. And, for CHARM, like a big part of her journey was to see other people as, she says in the film that, no one is less than or greater than, we are all equal. And I really think that was probably the biggest one, is like what that actually feels like,
Thank you so much. Faye, I know that you've got to go in just a second. Do you have any last words before you leave us?
I would like to say thank you all to make this happen, and then thank you Art with Impact and Voices with Impact to make this amazing premiere, and also to let everyone know mental health is important. And then through our discovery and recovery from substance use disorder, we can see more from the different perspective as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being here.
Bye-bye.
So we have a question for all of the filmmakers, and I love this one. So do you feel that you were able to convey the message that you wanted? So, and in hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently? It's always the thing on making art, right? Did you do it? Did you do the thing you wanted? And what would you have done differently, or what was surprising along the way? Let's start with Asha, if you don't mind.
Sure. I do think that I was able to convey the message, I think even more than I originally expected, because after filming and going through editing, one of my concerns was, are people gonna get it? Is it gonna come across the way it's supposed to? Especially for Dylan's sake, because he wanted to make sure that he was seen as himself. And so I felt kind of a lot of pressure to make sure that I was honoring him in the proper way. I don't think I would have done anything differently. There were points when I was getting frustrated throughout the process that I wished, I wish I could have got some shots of this, or I wish we would have made time to do this and do that. But I think it came together the way that it was supposed to. So I'm very happy with the result.
That's great. Thank you. How about you, Lane?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of when we find out, right? Like,
right?
Man, like I think you got to tell me that. If I'm pretty sure from test screenings that the answer is yes. But for all I know, you just watch it and we're like, cool dancing. I definitely feel like people who struggle with substances are morally bankrupt and do not deserve anything. In which case, then no, it's a hard no on whether we were successful. So, this is the exciting moment where we start getting to engage with more people who don't necessarily know us, and find out what is with as little preface as possible, what is the impact of this film, what are you walking away with, and what do you remember. So I feel excited to hear from you about that. In terms of doing anything differently, I think they're only logistical. We did 30 shots a day, and that was too many. It was not correct number of shots. For a little bit of context, 20 is usually pushing it. But I was like, all the shots are 15 seconds long. It's going to be fine. And it was technically fine. And then for me also, I just have limited experience working in dance. And obviously that was extremely untrue for everyone on our team, right? Like our dancers and our choreographer were just incredible, but shooting dance is different. Filming a dancing body artistically. And so I learned in the edit which of our shots were successful. We have a bunch of big wide shots, and you did not see any of those, and they took a while to get. And as I mentioned, we had a lot of shots to get. So I definitely had a lot of lessons learned technically and aesthetically. I think I knew not to do 30 shots in a day. It's just always me versus the budget, and I technically won because we got them. We did not do anything. So, but definitely a lot that I learned. More on the aesthetic side, I would be very excited to make another dance film and feel like a smarty pants going into that shot list.
Awesome. Chris, how about you?
I think I'd echo you, Lane, in the that thing of like it's not ours anymore, right? It's out in the world. So, when people react to it, that's when you kind of find out whether you conveyed what you wanted to. I think that to be open, I really like short form. So like short form for me doesn't feel restrictive at all, because I enjoy the challenge of it being short. It's fun, and I think the poem was maybe twice as long when I originally wrote the voiceover, and then was stripping away. But that makes writing better, because then you have to look at it like that. So I enjoy that process for short form, and I feel like that it makes me think about how it's going to come across a lot. So that was the writing part of it. But for visually and the whole kind of overall aesthetic and feel, I think we spent a long time thinking about it, and we were trying as much as possible to make it feel kind of comfortable and light for something that's quite heavy. And that was kind of the aim. And that's the thing that's hard to do over a short space of time. It felt like that kind of getting that kind of comfort in to then twist it. But I feel like a lot of practical stuff I feel like I planned everything and we did everything as much as we could in the way that we wanted to, but the world doesn't always want to be on your side with that, right? So there was a lot of things that had 6 weeks time to be done that didn't go right. So then that 6-week job ended up having to be done in a week. So it's stuff like that where you're like, it was, but that's the fun of it, right? That's the fun of it can be stressful, but once you kind of have made something with all the work you did, it feels kind of worth it. So, would I've done anything good differently? Yeah. But I think if I didn't feel like that, I would have learned anything. So that's really good.
Nikki, how about you?
Yeah, so looking at our film, watching it today, I feel like I'm a little less critical on our story, but I think if I were to make any alterations, it would be trying to add more dimension emotionally, because I felt like we carried a very intending to be inspiring, although it's a heavy topic kind of tone. And I wish we could have added a little bit more of the raw emotion that we experienced through the process. But that is a critique, and I'm not sure that it's like in my perspective, I'm not sure that it's fully an issue with the film or not. Ultimately, I'm not sure. So yeah, I just wish we could have added a little bit more dimension, but that's my critique.
Well, and to Chris's point, all of us, there's always things to learn, right? We always look, and we're always our harshest critics as well. So I think that's a big piece. So Athena, let's turn to you.
Yeah, I think, one of the challenges and one of the wonderful challenges, which I love as a filmmaker of this program, is all of us basically had like a month or a month and a half for post. I think we were all relatively along the same timeline, which in the world of filmmaking is not a lot of time. So, for me as a producer, one of the things that I love and is so crucial is the test audience, portion, of when you're doing a film. And with this amount of a crunched timeline for post, we had one go. And I think we had 2 days. So we sent it to people and we were just like, I'm praying to the God of film that this is resonating, that people are understanding. And so, there was a level of just trust in what we did on the day and trust in my amazing post team. And so, I think overall the feedback was relatively positive and people understood what was happening. So we were like, okay, great. We have a film, but very similar to what Lane and Chris said, where I'm so excited to put her out into the universe and see what audiences take. Because that's also one of the magic of making movies, is how art is so different for everybody and how we perceive things. So I'm really excited to see, how all of our films go out there and how everyone interprets them. I think the biggest challenge for us was just that my amazing, talented lead, Mila Jones, was only 6.5. And she was in every single shot. And my DP was like, "You're crazy. Like you need to have scenes without her." And I was like, "But it's her story. It's all from her perspective. She has to be in every moment." And so I worked with Mila now for 3 years, and she was 3.5. And so when I was writing the film, I was like, it's Mila or nothing, just because given the budget and the timeline of all of production, I was like, she's the only incredible little human that I trust and know can tackle this. And so I'm just so proud of her, because she worked those full 9 hours, with those little 15-minute breaks. But in hindsight, I think, having maybe a little more time would have been, beneficial. But I think that's like any film. There's never enough time. There's never enough resources. You're always pushing your budget and your team to the most. But, I'm still just so incredibly proud of what we were able to accomplish with our team and the time frame. And again, Mila was just so incredibly fantastic. So, yeah.
Love that. We have another question for Asha. Has Dylan shared anything about his experiences after seeing this film?
Yes. Well, before he saw it, he just kind of said thank you for, I guess, allowing him the experience. Because for him, it felt like kind of like a weight being lifted off of his shoulders. And then after he saw it, he really enjoyed it, because I sent everything to him. He saw the first round of everything just to make sure that, he was comfortable with what was being shared and that he felt like it felt like him. But he really enjoyed it. So I'm happy about that.
Excellent. And I'm curious, Lane, so you said that you had not really worked in dance film before, so you were sort of learning about that. Can you talk a little bit about the collaboration of sort of joining these art forms together a little bit more, and sort of how that worked for you?
Yeah, so just for a little bit of context, I started in theater and then transitioned to film kind of while getting my MFA. And I mean, I still work in theater, and basically Sarah was the movement director for a show that I was doing at UT that had a talking shark in it. And so she was coordinating, the shark and all of its babies, and how they would move across the stage. And she was kind of talking about this work that she'd been doing. And I am just a person where if you like try to talk about addiction and recovery storytelling near me, I will like suddenly appear in your conversation and be like, what are you doing? And so it felt really exciting to work in dance, especially because she was somebody who I had collaborated with several times. I don't think we've ever been in the same roles twice, but we've done a lot of projects together, and just always changing what those roles look like. And so I did a deep dive in kind of the dramaturgy of dance, more from that stage perspective at that time. And Sarah can speak so beautifully about, the mirror neurons in your body, just like kind of if you see an image. I don't need to use that example. There are certain things that if we see them, we feel them. I was going to say holding your breath is one of those, but I was going to say a more dramatic version. But like if a character's holding their breath, you just automatically hold your breath. And dance is one of those things for us as well. And I enjoy dance, obviously like I enjoy watching dance. I just don't have a lot of experience with it. And so for me, I'm a believer that as a director, you can kind of be bad at whatever you are bad at, as long as you know that you're bad at it, because then you know that you need to hire someone who's incredible at it, right? Like this is not a situation where if the dancers get kind of lost, I'm going to be able to fix it. You know what I mean? Like I can coach a green actor in a way that I can't coach a green dancer. And so for me, being able to name those gaps is just my priority hiring list, of like, we have to nail this person because I don't have that skill. Yeah. And so I think the experience of the live version helped me understand what dance conveys. And in some ways it's very similar to film, because in theater, a lot of things are communicated by talking. And so dance, obviously, we're not really talking. We're, communicating through the visual. And so that live experience was an adventure for me in how much narrative do you really need versus how much do you want an extended experience of a single emotional moment, right? You don't want to race through all of these emotional moments. You want to sit and linger in dance in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think bringing it into film actually just made it, I think, was a lot easier for me. I mean, first of all, I'd had that experience of working with Sarah on the live version, so it wasn't my very first entry into dance this time. It was building on a foundation and lessons learned from that. But then that also in film, if you have in my experience in test screenings that maybe y'all share, is if a character said something, the audience didn't hear it. Like if you only know their past job or their last boyfriend or whatever because they mentioned it, your audience does not retain that information. They need to see them in a flight attendant's uniform coming home from work. They need to see a picture of the ex-boyfriend on their phone, whatever. That's just not how information is landing in people's brains in film. So it felt it felt very clear that we could tell this whole story that does have quite a bit of narrative, I think, actually, in ours. For a dance film that's only 5 minutes, I think you do get a lot of story points, but because that information can be conveyed so rapidly in film and without speaking, it felt actually a lot easier to be working in it in film than it had in theater, where narrative communication is a little more confusing, how it happens in different ways that I didn't quite learn how to incorporate with where dance excels.
Mm-hmm. So cool. Thank you so much. Chris, my next question is for you. I'm curious, what were you looking for when you were doing casting? So you had the two blokes in the pub. What were you looking for?
So when I was writing the piece, I had a friend of mine in mind as the main character, because I like, for me, it's quite important that because of the way that we shot it and the way that like it feels like important to have quite real moments between the characters. So both of the actors are from my hometown. They have both quite different experiences of the hometown, but it was like we're from a tiny small place. There's actors from there. You have to look quite hard to find them, but they do exist somewhere. And it's really important to me always to, like, if I'm telling a story, that's from that place, to include people in it as much as I can that are from that place, that understand that story. So it made it really easy for me to direct them. But what I had in mind was two people that I used to drink with, basically. And these kind of, they kind of fit into these two kind of looks and vibes that I had around these kind of characters. And both Charlie and Jordan perfectly fit these kind of molds, actually, which was really interesting. Like me and Lucy had this conversation where we just like wrote like loads about what we thought about all of the background of the character, and like what their jobs were, like who their friends were, like what their relationship was to the pub. And we did that for both of them, and like that was just a whole like big long conversation. Charlie's a good friend, the main character, and he's a poet as well. So I knew that he would quite easily understand the kind of vibe we were going for. And Jordan was great because he kind of knew all those Hereford stereotypes I was talking about, because they exist for him. And what I got them to do was talk about Charlie still lived there until very recently, and Jordan moved away a long time ago. And I got them to talk about all of the Hereford kind of things over their drinks, because then all of these moments you get are really real. So the bits where I was like getting them to do like specific things, we didn't really use very many of them, but we used the bits where they were like, I was like, you can just talk about this now for a bit. And then it was those moments where it's that real bit of reaction, and that like you sort of, they got into the headspace of that really easily, because I could just be like, right, talk about, you know, the old kids like play area that everyone used to go to, or this pub or that pub, and like just loads of different stuff. And it was like, yeah, so it was really important to me that they had like a personal connection to it, so I could have this conversation about what we were trying to do, so they fully felt on board with it. And for me, that was really important, because I interview people to write most things I write, and they felt very much part of the process for me when talking to them about it. It kind of, it made it different. The characters originally had different names, and then we were like, you know what, we should just call them your names, because essentially that's what it's become now. So that was nice.
Huh, great. And this is sort of a follow-up question. So Nikki, the little girl in your film, was playing young Charm. So she was sort of representing a younger version of a true, real person. So how did you cast that actor, and what was the context that she was given, and how, you know, yeah, I actually, before this question wasn't, when I think like there's a child in the film, I think about Athena's film, but there's a child in your film as well. So I'd love to, hear any thoughts that you had on that.
Yeah, so we decided that we were going to do a little bit of reenactment for the inner child of Charm, and we looked and we said, oh, you know, like there's child actresses. And so we told Charm our plan, and Charm goes, well, actually, I know a little girl. She's never acted before, but she knows me really well, and I think that she would be a good fit. And so we actually worked with Charm, and her name's Mia, and Mia's mom, I believe, or Mia's family member also went through substance use disorder. So Mia was familiar with recovery and what that looks like. And our director, Ethan, was really good at guiding her through different processes, like waking up in the car and then doing affirmations in the mirror. And Mia she just lit up, and she was amazing at her role. Like she has a plan to be an actress now, so she has big dreams. And so it was really exciting to be able to go through that process with both Charm and Mia and Victoria and their families. We all felt like a big family in the crew set, so that was really cool.
I love that. Athena, you've done a lot of work with this. Was this your first film as the director?
Yeah, I've done it more like sketches, I would say. Like I've dabbled in the digital world with more like comedy, but this is definitely my first foray into more dramatic narrative directing, absolutely. Yeah.
So how was that for you?
you know, it was really, I'm a film producer. So when I got this grant, I was so excited. And I went to my producing partner, Sasha Duncan, who was amazing. Thank you, Sasha. And I was like, okay, I got this grant. I've made the budget. I'm doing locations agreements. And she was like, whoa, like, take a step back. That's not your job anymore. You're in charge of the creative now. And I was like, gold. It was just a completely different shift that I, as a producer, like I'm a creative producer. I typically involved more from like the conception and pre-production. So I'm involved in all of that, but not fully responsible for it. So it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was challenging just having to almost like rewire my brain and remind myself where my lane was. And I had the support and I had these incredible producers there to do my job. And so it was challenging, but in like a really magical, wonderful way. It also, again, this project involved, you know, a little actor, Mila Jones, who I'm a director of operations at an acting school. So I've been an acting coach for about 10 years. And so it kind of felt, it was like my little safety blanket in a way, getting to direct a little human that I've gotten to direct for, you know, the past 3.5 years. So I can't imagine being on that journey with anyone else. But it was great. Again, so fortunate that I got to make this film with a lot of my friends and a lot of my, you know, constant collaborators. So it kind of, there was just a lot of support, and I'm just very grateful and very lucky to have had that experience. So, yeah.
I love that. Chris, you have worked with Lucy multiple times in the past.
Mm-hmm.
What was different this time? How is it to work with somebody multiple times in lots of different creative incarnations? And the other film, so there, for the audience, the film that Lucy and Chris made, Touch Me, Don't Touch Me, is also in Art with Impact's Olive Film Collection. And so, like, we in our organization are super fans of this collaboration, but I'm curious how that's been for you and sort of growing over time.
Yeah, we like debrief like after each project we do. We leave each other alone for quite a little bit of time. and then yeah, we kind of debrief. It's interesting. So yeah, we've done Touch Me, Don't Touch Me, where that was all Lucy and I did a voiceover, and I wrote the voiceover for that. And then we did Factory Talk, which was like our kind of first like full-on working together thing. And that was yeah, that was like a really good experience. But I think that we learned a lot from it as well. There's like, you know, we made each other, like, we made a few like promises and stuff at the start of this process to be like, right, okay, so if it's like if we're going to talk about the project, we're going to email, we're not going to WhatsApp, and we're going to like be chill about people's replies and everything. And that lasted like a good bit of time. And then towards the end, we were like WhatsApping each other like all the time, being like, what's going on? What's happening here? So, you know, but I think we're pretty good at talking about like our communication and like asking each other if we're annoyed at each other and giving an honest answer, which is funny for two quite anxious people to be able to. So we kind of, you know, we definitely like, you know, we stress about very different things, which is why we work very well together. And like, I think the thing for us is that we always talk about it, like I'm very story focused, and that's the thing I'm always thinking about, and how like action and words convey that. And Lucy is very much like much more visual than I am, so we don't really tend to argue about anything. We're like, that's your bit, that's my bit, like, and we kind of do it like that. And then where we meet in the middle, that's kind of where. So that's always good. But I think we've got. I think like Lane, you said earlier, like you got to know what you're not good at, and I think that like we know what we're not good at and what we are good at together. So, and together it kind of feels like we kind of fill in the gaps for that other person, and I feel like that's really an important part to like recognize that. Yeah, we had a producer this time that Lucy co-produced with Tuli, who was really great to work with, because the last time I felt like Lucy didn't get enough creative say. So that's what we changed. That was the main change. So we had a lot more, like I was saying earlier, we had a big conversation about the characters' backgrounds and all that stuff. And we spent a lot more time on like actually blocking it out and just having big conversations about what we wanted the film to be. Where before we were a bit like, we did a lot of stuff like in Google Docs together, and then all of a sudden we were filming it and we were like, oh my god, we've not worked so many things out at all. So actually knowing what we were doing was like, that was the main
That was
bit of-
handy. It was nice to know you're doing
yeah, I would advise people to do that. Yeah. But it's lovely to work with someone so closely and grow with them like that. You know, like
Right?
also,
Yeah.
it feels really lovely to do it. I love collaboration, so it feels like a project that you're doing with someone. Like it feels like a different thing from if you're doing it on your own.
Yeah, I love that. So Asha, this next question is for you. I'm wondering, what is your number one tip for someone who might feel inspired by your film and want to make something, want to tell a story in a documentary style, or just make art in general? What would you recommend?
I say just go for it, honestly. I feel like a lot of times the only thing stopping us from doing things is ourselves. So you kind of have to like let that fear go and let that doubt go and just kind of go for it. There's so many ways to start. There's so many resources. And I don't know, it's like endless possibilities today. You can make a film on your phone. Like our phones are equipped with really amazing cameras, and you can make some really high quality content with that. So just go for it.
Beautiful, thank you. So in our last moments together, I'd love to just ask you, what else? What else is coming up for you? What else did you feel today in sharing this for the first time publicly in this way? And we'll start with Athena, and then maybe we can just go. I think we all see the same order with this thing, so we can just go in order. And I'd love to just, closing thoughts, closing ideas, feelings, anything else that's coming up for you in this moment that you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. Again, there was like so much anxiety up to this moment of like, okay, we're doing it. We're putting them out. The first one's always the worst, I think, in anything in life. So I'm really excited to see, for all of our films, kind of where they, land and where the conversations they, start, and, the education they bring, because they're all just so wonderfully, incredibly powerful. And it's been such an honor being a part of this cohort and meeting all these incredible filmmakers and getting to tell these stories. It's been really, really dreamy. So I'm feeling really grateful, much more calm than I was a couple hours ago. I'm excited for the rest of the week, for all these discussions and all of the panels we have coming up. I think it's going to be a really, really wonderful week. So I'm feeling very grateful right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling grateful as well. And I'm also just really, really excited to see all of the films throughout the rest of the week and tune into all the other like talks and panels and just learn more, because I've learned so much, not only through this process of making this film, but also just seeing everyone else's films and all of them just, I don't know, just touching me. So I'm excited.
I feel really honored to be part of something so amazing, and my own journey with mental health is like, there's so much room for conversation, and I think it's like a big honor to be able to share Charm's story and to be part of this with all of you. All of your work was amazing, and I'm just really grateful as well.
Yeah, this has been such a lovely thing to get to do this premiere with all of you. Definitely something I've been thinking about, coming from theater, when you open a show and it's opening night and your friends come and your enemies come and you all go out afterwards and you like talk about which scenes really are sticking people's minds and which aren't. And there's so much community and so much embodied presence, right? And for me, something I've really been thinking about, being on the festival circuit with my first feature during COVID, when everything is so virtual, is such a steep culture shock from theater, because it can often feel like sending things into the void, and then you don't know what was successful and unsuccessful, and that makes it really hard to make the next thing. I only know what I feel was successful and unsuccessful, but ultimately I'm not the arbiter of the film, kind of like we were talking about earlier. And so for me, I have been thinking a lot about like, what is a community around a film? What does that look like, both during COVID, but I think also in general? Because for me, I'm doing this in the hopes of connecting with people around these important ideas and experiences and emotional realities, both in terms of how I go about making the film, but especially sharing the film, right? And so it's been a big question for me, and this definitely feels feels like the beginning of an answer. It's lovely having a Q&A where we can feel respond. You know, it's I do not feel like we did this into the void, and so yeah, I'm continuing to just think about what that connection with audiences look like, especially because I think things are just going to be virtual more and more. You can't go to every film festival even if they're in person, and stuff like that. So inviting more direct conversations between artists and audience, and I feel like this has my wheels turning with more concrete ideas instead of just like I wish I wish I could talk to people. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like I needed this part of this like a lot actually, which is interesting because I didn't know that I felt that way about that until now. So that's nice. I feel like as artists, so much we like doing our thing, quite isolated from everybody else, and for me, it's always the sharing of it that's the most. It reminds me why I do it, and getting to share alongside such like other fantastic filmmakers feels like I feel really honored to be able to do that. And yeah, I feel like this, it feels like the start of something which is nice, and the start of a conversation that like I like want to keep having with people. And do you know what, like the thing that I'm thinking about right now is that like I felt quite apprehensive about sharing this because of like I kind of have a platform as an artist because of like my connection with like the queer community and making art about queerness. And this was the first time I really made something like this, which is like just through a queer lens. Like that's what it was all about to us. And it feels kind of, it feels nice to be able to get a platform where queer artists can make stuff that isn't just about being queer, because that's important. But that's all they let us talk about. Like, and it landing in like Pride Month in the UK for us as well is like a nice thing to like be like, I exist outside of my pain, but this is just another type of pain, I guess. So,
I have multiple kinds of pain.
Maybe I'll do something about joy one day. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I feel honored to be able to share this story and with all of you folks. So yeah.
I love that. Well, yeah, there's so many more stories to be told. And I mean, I think that that's what's so exciting. Even these 5 films, there's so many things in each film, which is why we have a whole week of stuff. So just to rename that, there is a week-long festival of community dialogue. There are still seats available for most of the sessions, so I really encourage folks to register. It's limited seating so that we can really be in community with each other and talking and having that kind of intimacy. So I really, if you're watching now and you haven't registered, get your tickets. Go ahead and do that. We've got a wonderful lineup, and tomorrow is the premiere of the Grief and Resilience film. So tomorrow we'll see 5 new films about grief and resilience, conversations that we really need to be having in the same way that we need to be talking about substance use disorder and all of the different ways that mental health impacts us. So I invite everybody to come back tomorrow, same time, same places. We're everywhere. This year is kind of fun because we're everywhere. You can go to YouTube. I don't even know the places because I'm terrible at that, but we're on them. We are on the places. So I invite you to come, be there, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you, everybody who is here, who came to watch, who's participating. We are so happy to share this work with you. Thank you, filmmakers, so much. And thank you, Art with Impact team, working tirelessly behind the scenes to make this all just incredibly beautiful and meaningful and wonderful. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody, wherever you are. And we'll see you back here tomorrow.